you'll be able to go back and write those in if you need to. So scene 3, we're going to meet a new character, Friar Lawrence. So Friar Lawrence is Romeo's priest. So, most people in Italy were Catholic at this time. So this would be like someone who Romeo has known like his entire life. He like makes confession to this person. They're very close. So it's not just like some random guy at the church that he goes and finds. It's someone who knows him very well and who Romeo confides in and sort of has told all of these things. The first part of this scene, Friar Lawrence is just going along talking about like night changing into day. He's collecting little herbs to make like little mixtures, to like put on wounds or what have you. So he's just talking about different herbs and how, some herbs can be good and some can be bad and some can be sometimes good and sometimes bad. He's just kind of just talking about what he is doing. And then Romeo will come in and they will talk. So the first part, just again, not necessary that you understand every single word, but more so that you understand what he's talking about. Reading the footnotes will help with that as well.
Scene 3. Friar Lawrence's cell in the monastery.
Gray-eyed morn smiles on the frowning night, checkering the eastern clouds with streaks of light. The flecked darkness like a drunkard reels from forth day's path and Titan's fiery wheels. Now ere the sun advances burning high, the day to cheer and night's dank dew to dry, I must not fill this austere cage of ours with baleful weeds and precious juicy flowers. The earth that nature's mother is her tomb, what is her burying grave that is her womb. And from her womb, children of divers kind, we sucking on her natural bosom find. Many for many virtues excellent, none but for some, and yet all different. Oh, mickle is the powerful grace that lies in plants, herbs, stones, and their true qualities. For not so vile that on the earth doth live, but to the earth some special good doth give. Nor aught so good, but strained from that fair use, revolts from true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns vice, being misapplied, and vice sometimes by action dignified. Within the infant rind of this small flower, poison hath residence, and medicine power. So this, being smelt, with that part cheers each part. Being tasted, slays all senses with the heart. Two such opposed kings encamp them still in man as well as hers, grace and rude will. And where the worser is predominant, full soon the canker of death eats up that plant.
Good morrow, Father.
Benedicite, what early tongue so sweet saluteth me? Young son, it argues a distempered head, so soon to bid good morrow to thy bed. Care keeps his watch in every old man's eye, and where care lodges, sleep will never lie. But where unbruised youth with unstuffed brain doth couch his limbs, there golden sleep doth reign. Therefore thy earliness doth me assure, thou art aroused with some distemperature. Or if not so, then here I hit it right. Our Romeo hath not been in bed tonight.
That last is true. The sweeter rest was mine.
God pardon sin. Wast thou with Rosaline?
With Rosaline, my ghostly father? No, I have forgot that name, and that name's woe.
That's my good son. But where hast thou been then?
Okay, so Friar Lawrence is collecting these herbs. You can see in the footnote up there in line 23 and 26, he's talking about a flower that if you smell it, it can help improve your health, but if it's eaten, it causes death. So he's kind of talking about how there's like good and evil that can exist within one plant. Same thing within people, right? People have good things about them and bad things about them. They can coexist. Then Romeo comes in. It's very early morning, right? Because he's been at the Capulet party. He went and saw Juliet. Now the sun is starting to come up, and it's that next day. Okay. He says, "What early tongue so sweet saluteth me?" Again, alliteration with the S's. And then in line 42, he says, "Our Romeo hath not been in bed tonight." Romeo says, "That last is true, the sweeter rest was mine." Friar Lawrence says, "God pardon sin, wast thou with Rosaline?" So what does Friar Lawrence think that Romeo was doing? Yeah, he thinks that he was with Rosaline, right? Because he doesn't know any different. And so he assumes like Romeo's been up all night and he said, "The sweeter rest was mine," right? So Friar Lawrence maybe thinks that like they were doing something inappropriate, right? All night long. But Romeo says, "No, I have forgot that name, and that name's woe." And Friar Lawrence is like, "Oh, great, but where were you?" Okay. And Romeo here is gonna kind of like not really just come right out and say where he was. And then Friar Lawrence is going to ask him for some clarification. And then on the next page, Romeo will finally explain where he was. So don't be concerned if you get confused by what Romeo is saying here, because Friar Lawrence is also confused by it.
I'll tell thee ere thou ask me again. I have been feasting with mine enemy, whereon a sudden one hath wounded me that's by me wounded. Both thy remedies within thy help and holy physic lies. I bear no hatred, blessed man, for lo, my intercession likewise steads my foe.
Be plain, good son, and holy in thy drift. Riddling confession finds but riddling shrift.
Then plainly know, my heart's dear love is set on the fair daughter of rich Capulet. As mine on hers, so hers is set on mine. And all combined, save what thou must combine by holy marriage. When and where and how we met, we wooed and made exchange of vow, I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today.
Holy Saint Francis, what a change is here. Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes.
Okay, we'll stop there for a second. Okay, so Romeo then finally comes out and says that he is in love with Juliet, and she's in love with him, okay? And he says, he asks, "Will you marry us?" Right? He says, "I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today." And Friar Lawrence says, "Holy St. Francis, what a change is here," right? Because he knows Romeo really well, and he knows how upset Romeo was over Rosaline. He says, "Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken?" So like so soon given up. "Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes." So what's he saying here about Romeo's love? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Yep, exactly. Right? That he only loves her because she's pretty, right? Or that he only is just looking at the surface, right? He's sort of superficial or yeah, just not really, just basing it. What's that? Yeah, just basing it on looks. Okay. All right.
Jesuia, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline. How much salt water thrown away in waste to season love that of it doth not taste. The sun not yet thy sighs from heaven clears, thy old groans ring yet in mine ancient ears. Lo, here upon thy cheek the stain doth sit of an old tear that is not washed off yet. If e'er thou wast thyself, and these woes thine, thou and these woes were all for Rosaline. And how thou changed? Pronounce this sentence then: women may fall when there's no strength in men.
Thou chidst me oft for loving Rosaline,
For doting, not for loving, pupil mine.
and badst me bury love.
Not in a grave to lay one in, another ought to have.
I pray thee, chide not. She in whom I love now doth grace for grace and love for love allow. The other did not so.
For she knew well thy love did read by rote, that could not spell. But come, young waverer, come go with me. In one respect, I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love.
Oh, let us hence, I stand on sudden haste.
Wisely and slow, they stumble that run fast.
Okay, so at the top of the page here, Friar Lawrence is kind of talking about like, man, you were really crying a lot over Rosaline, and like now you're just over it. Like your tears aren't even dry yet, right? And Romeo says like, well, you scolded me for loving Rosaline, and Friar Lawrence says for doting, not for loving people mine. So he's saying like, I was scolding you for being lovesick and for like letting it take over your whole life, not for being in love. But Romeo then finally in line 85 talks about how, well, the person who I am in love with now, she loves me back, so it's totally different, right? So in your questions, you have, how does Friar Lawrence react to Romeo's confession of his love for Juliet? So what's Friar Lawrence's reaction? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, maybe he kind of thinks that their love is superficial, okay, or inconsistent. So why did Romeo come and talk to Friar Lawrence again?
To get married?
Yeah, to get him to agree to marry them. Does he agree to do that?
Yeah.
Yes. So in line 90, he says, in one respect, all thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove, to turn your household's rancor to pure love. So why is he agreeing to help marry them? What does he hope might happen?
Then their houses might not fight in the streets anymore.
Perfect, yeah, right? He's rancor is like hatred, right? So he's saying maybe if your two houses can see that you two are in love, maybe that will help end this fight that's been going on, okay? So that's your answer to number 2. He hopes that it will end the feud. Okay. So that is scene 3, pretty short. So I'm gonna, again, like I said, keep going. You can either jot down something for the summary or come back to it. We will keep on going. So scene 4,
Scene 4,
oh,
the
okay.
street.
What's happening?
Where the
Okay, there we go. So this takes place on a street, just sort of somewhere in Verona. It's going to start with Benvolio and Mercutio. They're just kind of walking along, talking. Keep in mind that they don't know that Romeo has met Juliet. Okay, they think that he is still off being sad about Rosaline. And they're going to kind of talk about the issue with Tybalt, right? What is Tybalt upset about?
That they came to the party.
That the Montagues came to the Capulet party. Okay, so they're kind of going to talk about that. Okay, here we go.
Act 4,
Oh, okay.
Scene 1, Friar Lawrence's cell. Act 2, Scene 4, the street.
Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight?
Not to his father's. I spoke with his man.
And that same pale, hard-hearted wench, that Rosaline, torments him so that he will sure run mad.
Tybalt, the kinsman to old Capulet, had sent a letter to his father's house.
challenge on my life.
Romeo will answer it.
Any man that can write may answer a letter.
Nay, he will answer the letter's master, how he dares being dared.
Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye, shot through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with the blind bow boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt?
Why? What is Tybalt?
More than Prince of Cats, I can tell you. Oh, he's the courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing prick song, keeps time, distance, and proportion. Rest me his minim rest. 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. The very butcher of the silk butt. A duelist, a gentleman of the very first house, of the first and second cause. Ah, the immortal passado, the punto reverso, the hay.
Of what?
The pox of such antic, lisping, affecting fantasticos, these new tuners of accent. By Jesu, a very good blade, a very tall man, a very good whore. Why is not this a lamentable thing, grandsire, that we should be thus afflicted with these strange flies, these fashion mongers, these predonomes who stand so much on the new form that they cannot sit at ease on the old bench? Oh, their bones, their bones.
Okay, so this is mostly just Mercutio being ridiculous and talking about Tybalt, and he's talking a lot here about like the style of dueling, right, of sword fighting that Tybalt does. Okay, but it is important that you note that in line 6, Benvolio says, Tybalt, the kinsman to old Capulet, hath sent a letter to his father's house, to Romeo's father's house. And Mercutio says, a challenge on my life. So basically, Tybalt has sent a letter challenging Romeo to a fight, okay, because of what happened at the party. Benvolio says Romeo will answer it. Mercutio is kind of joking around. And then Mercutio is kind of saying that, like, Romeo's, like, too in love to even, like, fight, really, right? Like, what is he a man to encounter Tybalt? We've got some alliteration, okay, in line 15. The blind bow boy's butt shaft, which he's referring to Cupid's arrow, okay? So also kind of an allusion there, allusion plus alliteration. You can have more than one kind of figurative language at a time. And then, like I said, yeah, more alliteration in line 19, courageous captain of compliments. Okay, so in this whole section, Mercutio is just kind of playing off of Tybalt's name. There was a cat in a fable who was named Tybalt, who was like very sly and cunning, and so he's just kind of making a joke off of that name and joking about this new style that Tybalt uses to sword fight. So Tybalt has issued a challenge to fight Romeo. Your first question is to predict Romeo's response to Tybalt's challenge. So what do you think that Romeo will do? There's not really a right or wrong answer because it's a prediction. Huh? Okay, so maybe he will accept. Anybody think he won't? Right, we know that he's over emotional and dramatic, right? So somebody challenging him, he'd probably want to fight back, maybe.
Why would he challenge the people that he's trying to marry?
Okay, another good point. Why would he challenge, like, why would he accept Tybalt's challenge if he's trying to marry Juliet and that's her cousin? Okay, so it's up to you. You can put what you think. It's a prediction, so up to you. Okay, he has reasons to accept and to not accept, right? Because we know that he is a little bit like emotional, dramatic, so he might see this as like an offense and want to get back at Tybalt for it. Or he might think like, I want to marry Juliet and that's her cousin, so he might let it go.
Wait, isn't he just doing the challenge thing because he was at the party and there was a Capulet party and he's not?
Yeah, he feels like, Tybalt feels like he was insulted by Romeo being there. Yes, it's silly. Everybody here just needs to calm down, basically, the moral of the story. Okay, so a note from your stage note here, enter Romeo, no longer moody. So his friends are going to immediately notice that he is in a much better mood. Why is he in that better mood? Because he has this plan to marry Juliet. Do Benvolio and Mercutio know that? No. Okay, dramatic irony. We know something that the characters don't know.
Here comes Romeo. Here comes Romeo.
Without his roe, like a dried herring. Oh, flesh, flesh, how art thou fishified? Now is he for the numbers that Petrarch flowed in. Laura to his lady was but a kitchen wench. Mary, she had a better love to berhyme her. Dido a dowdy, Cleopatra a gypsy, Helen and Hero, Fieldings and harlots, Thisbe a grey eye or so, but not to the purpose. Signor Romeo, bonjour. There's a French salutation to your French slop. You gave us the counterfeit fairly last night.
Good morrow to you both. What counterfeit did I give you?
The slip, sir, the slip. Can you not conceive?
Pardon, good Mercutio. My business was great, and in such a case as mine, a man may strain courtesy.
That's as much as to say, such a case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hands.
Meaning to courtesy,
Thou hast most kindly hit it.
a most courteous exposition.
Nay, I am the very pink of courtesy.
Pink for flower.
Right,
Why, then is my pump well flowered?
well said. Follow me this jest now till thou hast worn out thy pump, that when the single soul of it is worn, the jest may remain. After the wearing, solely single.
Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness.
Come between us, good Benvolio, my wits faint.
Switch and spurs, or I'll cry a match.
Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I am done. For thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than, I am sure, I have in my whole 5. Was I with you there for the goose?
Thou wast never with me for anything when thou wast not there for the goose.
I will bite thee by the ear for that jest.
Nay, good goose, bite not.
Thy wit is a very bitter sweeting. It is a most sharp sauce.
And is it not then well served into a sweet goose?
Oh, here's a wit of Cheverel that stretches from an inch narrow to an ell broad.
Ah,
Okay, so all of this is just these guys just like joking around back and forth. They're like trying to come up with like funnier comments and like a more clever pun. They're just like going back and forth, right? Just kind of how friends do even today, right? Like you like, I don't know, or just kind of messing around with your friends, like making jokes, teasing each other a little bit, okay? So don't worry too much about like what every line means, like I said, okay? Okay, they're gonna continue doing this for the top of this page. And then the nurse is going to come in with Peter, okay? So the nurse, as we know, is Juliet's, kind of second mother, very close to her. And Peter is basically just like another servant. So even though the nurse is technically a servant of the Capulets, she would sort of rank a little bit higher because of her position with Juliet. So she's gonna try to be kind of bossing Peter around, right? She's gonna be all through this scene. The nurse is gonna be trying to act like very much more important than she is, and like that she's some like high class fancy lady, even though she's also technically a servant.
Stretch it out for that word broad, which added to the goose proves thee far and wide a broad goose.
Why is not this better now than groaning for love? Now art thou sociable, now art thou Romeo, now art thou what thou art, by art as well as by nature. This dribbling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down to hide its bubble in a hole.
Stop there. Stop there.
Thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair?
Thou wouldst else have made thy tail large.
Oh, thou art deceived. I would have made it short, for I was come to the whole depth of my tale, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer.
Here's goodly gear.
A sail! A sail!
Two, a shirt and a smock.
Peter,
Anon.
my fan, Peter.
Good Peter, to hide her face, for her fan's the fairer of the two.
God ye good morrow, gentlemen.
God you good den, fair gentlewoman.
Is it good then?
'Tis no less, I tell you. For the body hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon.
Out upon you, what a man are you?
One gentlewoman that God hath made himself to mar.
By my troth, it is well said for him. himself tomorrow, quotha, gentlemen, can any of you tell me where I may find the young Romeo?
I can tell you, but young Romeo will be older when you have found him than he was when you sought him. I am the youngest of that name, for fault of a worse.
You say well.
Yea is the word well. Very well took it, Faith. Wisely, wisely.
If you be me, sir, I desire some confidence with you.
She will indict him to some supper.
Abad. So ho!
What hast thou found?
Oh, no hare, sir. Unless a hare, sir, in a Lenten pie. That is something stale and poor ere it be spent. An old hare whore and an old hare whore is very good meat in Lent. But a hare that is whore is too much for a score when it whores ere it be spent. Romeo, will you come to your father's? We'll to dinner thither.
I will follow you.
Farewell, ancient lady. Farewell. Lady.
Okay, so she enters and they basically just kind of make fun of her because you'll see in the movie, I mean, she's dressed like completely ridiculously. And she's got like this big like veil thing like hanging from her head. So they really like go after her, tease her. Like Mercutio says a lot of kind of like dirty jokes to her that she would not feel like, especially in the movie, it's funny because like she'll like kind of laugh and then she remembers like, oh, I'm not supposed to laugh and stuff like that. But she's kind of offended by Mercutio. And then they kind of tease Romeo because like this weird lady wants to talk to him. But they finally leave and now the nurse and Romeo can talk. The nurse is there obviously to find out what the plan is, right? Like Juliet has sent her to find out what is going to happen for this marriage.
Marry farewell. I pray you, sir, what saucy merchant was this that is so full of his roguery?
A gentleman nurse that loves to hear himself talk and will speak more in a minute than he will stand to in a month.
And to speak anything against me, I'll take him down, and I'll go lustier than he is in 20 such jacks. And if I cannot, I'll find those that shall, scurvy knave. I am none of his flirt giggles, I am none of his skins mates. And thou will stand by too, and suffer every knave to use me at his pleasure.
I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had, my weapon should quickly have been out. I warrant you, I dare draw as soon as another man if I see occasion in a good quarrel and the law on my side.
Now, for God, I am so vexed that every palm about me quivers. Scurvy knave. Pray, sir, a word. And as I told you, my young lady bade me inquire you out. What she bid me say, I will keep to myself. First, let me tell you, if we should leave her, fool's paradise, as they say, a very gross kind of behavior, as they say, for the gentleman is young, and therefore you should deal double with her. Truly, it were an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and very weak demon.
Okay, so basically, she has said, that she's there to find out what's going on. But she says here in line 143, but first let me tell ye, if you should lead her into a fool's paradise, as they say, it were a very gross kind of behavior, as they say, for the gentlewoman is young, and therefore, if you should deal double with her, truly it were an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and a very weak dealing. Okay, so what she's basically saying here is like, you better be like for real about this, right? Like if you're trying to trick her, if you're trying to play her, that's not okay, right? Like you need to be honest about this, and you need to really be wanting to marry her if that's really what's happening here. So your second question is, what can you infer about the nurse's relationship with Juliet based on this speech? So what can we infer about their relationship? Yeah, they're really close. Okay, what else? Good. Yeah, the nurse is very protective of Juliet. Okay, just like a mother would be. But she wants to make sure that Romeo is sincere, right? That he's not just trying to mess around, that he's not just like trying to fool her into something, okay? Romeo is going to explain that yes, he does truly love her, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's going to explain sort of what the plan is.
Nurse, commend me to thy lady and mistress. I protest unto thee.
Good heart, and think I will tell her as much. Lord, Lord, she will be a joyful woman.
What wilt thou tell her, nurse? Thou dost not mark me.
I will tell her, sir, that you do protest, which, as I take it, is a gentlemanlike honor.
Bid her devise some means to come to Shrift this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence' cell be shrived and married. Here is for thy pains.
No, truly, sir, not a penny.
Go to, I say you shall.
This afternoon, sir, well, she shall be there.
And stay, good nurse, behind the abbey wall. Within this hour my man shall be with thee, and bring thee cords made like a tackled stair, which to the high top gallant of my joy must be my convoy in the secret night. Farewell. Be trusty, and I'll quit thy pains. Farewell. Commend me to thy mistress.
Now God in heaven bless thee. Hark you, sir.
What say'st thou, my dear nurse?
Is your man secret? Did you ne'er hear say two may keep counsel, putting one away?
I warrant thee my man's as true as steel.
Well, sir, my mistress is the sweetest lady. Lord, it was a little prating thing. Oh, there is a nobleman in town, one Paris, that would fain lay nigh for board, but she would so as you see a toad, a very toad is seeking. However, sometimes it is the proper man, but our old Cuban, I say so, she looks as pale as any cloud in the universal world. About Rosemary and give both a letter.
My nurse? What of that? Both with an R.
Ah, Walker, that's the dog's name. R is for the, no, I know it begins with some other letter. And she hath the prettiest sententious of it from you and Rosemary that do you good to hear it.
Commend me to thy lady.
Aye, 1,000 times. Peter,
Anon.
Peter, take my fan and go before and apace.
Okay, so in line 155, we hear what this plan is. So Romeo says, bid her devise some means to come to Shrift this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence's cell be shrived and married. So what is the plan?
Don't need to be married in the afternoon.
Where, like, how's Juliet gonna, because, so at this time, like, girls couldn't really just be like, okay, mom and dad, see you later, I'm leaving, right? Like, they had to, like, usually be escorted somewhere. There were only a few places that they could go. So what's gonna be their plan to get her out of the house?
They might sneak her out.
What does it say? What? Bid her devise some means to come to Shrift, line 155. So what does it mean to come to Shrift? Use your footnotes if you need to. So in the footnote, it says, Romeo tells the nurse to have Juliet come to Friar Lawrence's cell this afternoon, using the excuse that she is going to confess her sins. So Shrift would be another word for confession, which, like, it, in like Catholicism, you go to confession and you like confess your sins, and then, you know, the priest or the father or whoever, like, you know, tells you how to, like, do penance for them or whatever. So she's gonna, and that's something that they would be allowed to do, like, and that's something private. So you wouldn't really need like an escort or something to do that, because you go like privately and do that, right? So she's basically going, so Juliet will say she's going to confession. And we'll meet Romeo at Friar L's cell to be married. Okay, so that's how she's going to get out of the house, and then they'll be married there. Okay, Romeo also mentions in line 163 that he is going to provide the nurse with a rope ladder, basically, okay, so that then that night he can sneak up into Juliet's room, right, so they can be together for their wedding night, okay. Any questions about the plan that they have? Okay, I'm gonna try to speed through scene 5. Oh gosh, maybe even scene 6 because it's so short. Okay, so scene 5 is in the Capulets orchard. Juliet has been waiting and waiting and waiting for the nurse to come back, and she's super nervous and just can't wait to find out what's gonna happen. So this whole beginning part is just her talking about how anxious she is to find out what's going to happen. And then when the nurse comes in, the nurse is going to kind of mess with her and like be like, oh, I'm too tired, I can't talk. I have no breath, I can't tell you yet. Just kind of teasing Juliet. And then she's finally gonna explain what the plan is.
Scene 5, Capulet's orchard.
The clock struck 9 when I did send the nurse. In half an hour she promised to return. Perchance she cannot meet him. That's not so. Oh, she is lame. Love's heralds should be thoughts which 10 times faster glide than the sun's beams, driving back shadows over lowering hills. Therefore do nimble-pinioned doves draw love, and therefore hath the wind swift Cupid wings. Now is the sun upon the highmost hill of this day's journey, and from 9 till 12 is 3 long hours. Yet she is not come. Had she affections and warm youthful blood, she would be as swift in motion as a ball. My words would bandy her to my sweet love and him to me. But old folks, many fain as they were dead, unwieldy, slow, heavy, and pale as lead. Oh God, she comes. Oh, honey, nurse, what news? Hast thou met with him? Send thy man away.
Peter, stay the gate.
Now, good, sweet nurse. Oh Lord, why look'st thou sad? Though news be sad, yet tell them merrily. If good, thou shamest the music of sweet news by playing it to me with so sour a face.
I am a-weary. Give me leave a while. I have my bones ache. What a chance have I had?
I would thou hadst my bones and I thy muse. Nay, come, I pray thee speak. Good nurse, speak.
Jesu, what haste! Can you not stay a while? Do you not see that I am out of breath?
How art thou out of breath when thou hast breath to say to me that thou art out of breath? The excuse that thou dost make in this delay is longer than the tale thou dost excuse. Is thy news good or bad? Answer to that. Say either, and I'll stay the circumstance. Let me be satisfied. Is't good or bad?
Well, you have made a simple choice. You know not how to choose a man. Romeo, no, not he. Though his face be better than any man's, yet his leg excels all men's. And for a hand and a foot and a body, though they be not to be talked on, yet they are past compare. He's not the flower of courtesy, but I'll warrant him as gentle as a lamb. Gladway's wench, serve God. What, you dined at home?
No, but all this did I know before. What say ye of our marriage? What of that?
Lord, how my head aches. What a head have I. It beats as it would fall in 20 pieces. My back on the other side. Oh, my back. Beshrew your heart for sending me about to catch my death with jouncing up and down.
Faith, I am sorry that thou art not well. Sweet nurse, tell me, what says my love?
Your love says, like an honest gentleman, and courteous and kind and handsome, and I warrant a virtuous pleasure her.
Where is my mother? Why, she is within. Where should she be? How oddly thou repliest. Your love says, like an honest gentleman, where is your mother?
Oh, God's lady dear, are you so hot? Mary, come up, I trow. Is this the poultice for my aching bones? Heads forward, do your messages yourself.
Here's such a coil. Come, what says Romeo?
Have you got leave to go to Shrift today?
I have.
Then hie you hence to Friar Lawrence' cell. There stays a husband to make you a wife. Now comes the wanton blood up in your cheeks. They'll be in scarlet straight at any news. Hie you to church. I must another way, to fetch a ladder by the which your love must climb a bird's nest soon when it is dark. I am the drudge, and toil in your delight. But you shall bear the burden soon at night. Go, out to dinner. Hie you to the cell.
Hie to high fortune. Honest nurse, farewell.
Okay, so again, the nurse is really just messing with Juliet, teasing her, kind of creating suspense, like I said. You know, they have a very close relationship, obviously, so. So she's just messing with her. Okay, scene 6 is incredibly short, so we're just gonna finish it off. This is in Friar Lawrence's cell. This is the scene where Romeo and Juliet get married. Before they get married, Friar Lawrence offers some warnings about like not moving too quickly, which obviously doesn't really happen, but okay, scene 6, Friar Lawrence's cell. Sorry to speed through, but let's try and get it done.
Scene 6. Friar Lawrence's cell.
So smile the heavens upon this holy act, that after hours with sorrow chide us not.
Amen. Amen. But come what sorrow can, it cannot countervail the exchange of joy that one short minute gives me in her side. Do thou but close our hands with holy words, then love devouring death do what he dared. It is enough, I may but call her mine.
These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume. The sweetest honey is loathsome in its own deliciousness, and in the taste confounds the appetite. Therefore, love moderately. Long love doth so, too swift arrives as tardy as too slow. Here comes the lady, oh so light of foot, will ne'er wear out the everlasting flint. A lover may bestride the gossamer that idles in the wanton summer air, and yet not fall, so life is vanity.
Good even to my ghostly confessor.
Romeo shall thank thee, daughter, for us both.
As much to him, else is his thanks too much.
Ah, Juliet, if the measure of thy joy be heaped like mine, and that thy skill be more to blazon it, then sweeten with thy breath this neighbor air, and let rich music's tongue enfold the imagined happiness that both receive in either by this dear encounter.
Conceit, more rich in matter than in words, brags of his substance, not of ornament. They are but beggars that can count their worth. But my true love is grown to such excess, I cannot sum up some of half my wealth.
Come with me, and we will make short work. For by your leaves, you shall not stay alone, till Holy Church incorporate two in one.
Okay, so in line 9, Friar Lawrence says these violent delights have violent ends. So he's saying like, you have all this passion for each other, right? But it's going to have a violent end. How is this foreshadowing? Yeah, they die at the end, right? So we know this will end in death or tragedy. You could just put they die at the end, right? Whatever you want. Okay, but this is an example of foreshadowing, right? The Friar Lawrence is saying that like that all this passion is gonna have some sort of violent end. And then he gives some advice. So he says, therefore love moderately, love long doth so, too swift arrives as tardy as too slow. So what advice is he giving here? How could we sort of put this into our own words? Therefore, love moderately, love long doth so, too swift arrives as tardy as too slow. What do you think is he saying? Do you think he agrees with them rushing into things? No, right? So he's basically saying like, to make your love last, take things slow. And I know that sounds crazy because they're married, but keep in mind just the time period, okay? All right, and then your last question on your study guide is who knows about their relationship at this point? Nurse and Friar Lawrence, okay? I mean, obviously Romeo and Juliet. Okay, but that's it. All right. So Wednesday is an AMI day, right? So that means that you guys are staying at home and you're doing an assignment. So I'll post it on Canvas. It's going to be a modern translation of the balcony scene, which is Act 2, Scene 2. I will have video instructions on there as well as written instructions, okay? And you just need to make sure that at the very least that you're logging onto Canvas and trying it a little bit, okay? I would personally recommend that you submit, like even if you don't finish it, submit something. So we have some evidence that, you know, you were doing something. Because we have to keep track of like who did stuff and who didn't, okay? Then Friday, we will watch the movie and then take the quiz, okay? Over Act 2.
Let's find out for that A and I day. That's kind of your attendance for the day.